It's easy to feel lost in this world that's often too dark, too noisy, too crowded. There are so many voices competing for our attention, but only one can bring us the peace we yearn for. How do we tune out the noise? How do we find God's light? God knows we will experience difficulty in this life. He also knows that if we follow His Son, Jesus Christ, we will find happiness. This is His plan for us. So He lovingly gave us guides to follow. These guides are men called prophets. Prophets are men who are chosen by God to lead and guide all of His children on the earth. They are given authority by Him to do so. Prophets act as a spokesman for God and reveal to us His will. They tell us of the perfect plan that God has for all of His children. And most importantly, they help direct us towards and testify of Jesus Christ, who is at the center of that perfect plan. From the beginning of time, prophets had foretold of Christ's birth. Adam was the first prophet and received divine direction from God in order to lead and guide his family. There have been many prophets to follow Adam, like Moses, Noah, and Abraham, and all of them are chosen for a specific time in history to lead God's children on the earth. After learning about God's will directly from Him, prophets would preach to people in city streets, and in homes, and on walls, and in temples or designated places of worship. They told people all about the plan of happiness and the blessings that come from following that plan. Prophets led people to spiritual safety and peace, and even to physical safety, like the prophet Moses. Prophets would often compile the direction that God gave into books called scriptures. These books contain the direction from God that we need in order to obtain blessings. Just as people in ancient times received blessings from the words of the prophets, we can still apply these teachings to our lives today and obtain these same blessings. From a study of the scriptures, a pattern becomes evident. As we obey the direction from the prophets, we can experience outward physical blessings like increased safety and health, but we can also experience strengthened families and a clearer direction and purpose in life. God also revealed His will to His prophets through moral standards called commandments. Since the beginning of time, these loving instructions have helped people lead happy lives. As we choose to follow these commandments, we can experience physical and tangible blessings, as well as spiritual blessings. However, when we choose to disobey them, we can experience sorrow and confusion. God gave us these prophets so that we could experience all of the wonderful blessings that come from following His plan. As God's children chose not to follow the words of the prophets, they experienced certain physical and spiritual destruction. In not choosing to follow the light, they were choosing darkness. And in not choosing to obey the words of the prophets, they were rejecting God. When God's children consistently and collectively chose not to listen to the prophets, God had to remove them from the earth, which left people without His divine guidance. This period of darkness is called apostasy, and it has happened several times throughout history. These periods of apostasy are dark and trying times because people don't possess the knowledge of God's perfect plan for them. They are left without the guidance from someone who has the authority to speak on behalf of God. God never intended for His children to remain in these periods of darkness forever. So He's always reached out again in love and chosen another prophet on the earth. This pattern is prevalent even today, on a personal basis in our own lives. When we choose to follow God's plan, we experience blessings of hope and peace. However, there are times when we may feel separated from God, or even feel like He's abandoned us. I know there have been times in my life where I felt frustrated or even distant from God. It's hard to know what steps to take or actions I can make that will help me once again feel the peace and the hope and comfort that comes from being close to God. But that's why I feel so blessed to have prophets who bring us to a knowledge of God's plan. These prophets have brought me to an understanding of the certain plan and the surety and the happiness that I've needed most in these times in my life. Nothing brings me comfort like knowing that in the lowest points of my life, I can turn to someone who speaks for God Himself. But the greatest message of peace and hope that these prophets tell us of is that of Jesus Christ. Ancient prophets boldly declared the glad news of Christ coming to all who would listen. Despite this, many prophets were rejected and even killed because people let fear and doubt overcome them. Before Christ's birth, there was a period of apostasy when there was no prophet to lead and guide the way. But just as all the prophets had said, Jesus Christ was coming. He would restore all that was lost and bring hope to the world. His light and life would not only lead and guide the world, but change it forever.